Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Tonight, we are walking through the gate with a gentleman I admire for so many reasons. As a child, he lived through more true nightmares than our minds can fathom. He has taken his experiences and his love and power of God to help others through the true evils in this world and toward the light of hope and love. His books, Dark Forces, and The Connection are riveting and detailed. They have been the subject of the most watched episode of A Haunting titled The House of the Dead, numerous television and radio appearances, and shown the world the answer to the dark is always the light. Please welcome spiritual warfare minister, exorcist, and life coach minister, my friend, Bill Bean. Welcome, Bill.
So much, Sysco. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on with you.
The honor is all ours, I assure you. Now, I know you are a busy guy. There is so much going on out there, so if you don't mind, I'm going to jump right in with a question. Do you mind?
Sure, no. Ask away, anything that you like.
Okay. We could go through everything that you went through in the house as a child, but I'd like to jump ahead a little bit and just give a little bit of bullet points of basically it was in the 1970s and you were in a home, you and your family. It was a brother and a little older sister and your mom and your dad, correct?
That is correct.
And everything was good to go and everybody's personality was upbeat and a loving family until you got into this house and very slowly things started to happen, and as usual, they start on a gradual basis, and, before you know it, you're a neck deep in, evil forces, basically. And is that true?
It is true, but, I found out additional information after writing the first book, which is called Dark Force. A family member had let me know that, and it's very difficult when you suffer these types of traumas and all these things that happen. It's difficult for people to talk about. For instance, my siblings and I couldn't even talk about it from the time that we had left the house all the way up until the year 2005. We just could not talk about it. So I had a family member that came to me with additional information after I'd written the first book, Dark Force, saying that it went much further back, that there were family members many years ago that actually invoked and conjured up those demonic forces that came upon the family. And I found out that my mother and her siblings had many paranormal supernatural experiences in their childhood. And also, they had lived in the very area at one point in time, to where that house was located, very close to it. And so she had pre-exposure to that. She was going through all these things in her childhood, my mother. And so she was pre-exposed to the area before we got there. So I feel that it was a combination of those family members who I don't even know. They were around before I was born and probably before my mother was born as well. It was a combination of them along with evil that was present and manifest in that house and in the area. And I think that's why it was so severe for my family and I, because we were in this perfect storm surrounded by these demonic forces, and it truly did. It greatly contributed to the destruction of my family.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing too. Being the fact that I have looked into this case for years because, as the listeners may know, I've mentioned it before, it's so typical. Now, we like to think when we see things like this on our television set or we read our stories or whatever, that this is just made up Hollywood nonsense. I assure you, as my listeners will know, this is as real as a nose on your face. If you're going to look at this world, you have to understand, even if you just took the religion part out of it, that if good exists, evil exists. It's a balance. It's a high vibration, low vibration, just like the ultimate love, the ultimate knowing, the ultimate joy of light, and then the absence of all those things. And the lower vibrational things that exist, and they do exist, people, trust me on that, they feed on the lower vibrational things of others. Now, you had a quote in your book, and I'd like to read it. It was it was in The Connection, and it said, "When we are under the influence of alcohol and or a drug, our frequency and vibration is lowered, leaving us wide open for attack." That is something that I have known pretty much all my life, and I try to explain that to people. It's that simple. I happen to call it cracks in your spiritual windshield. And I know that sounds funny. It sounds funny, but you're basically helping it along. And if you keep yourself in that lower vibrational realm, lower vibrational things recognize it. If you and if you keep yourself in a higher vibrational realm, it's basically it. Now, I don't know how you see this, Bill, but I've had this theory for years now. Everything's changing. We've grown desensitized.
Very rapidly, Sysco.
Isn't it amazing how fast? And I talk to people like yourself, and they all seem to agree. Everybody calls it something different, but it's almost like there is this dark fog that's crawling over the world, and it's hitting the people that are an easy influence. And then you have these people that are light, that it just goes around because it can't touch them. And it just keeps eating.
Exactly.
It's like a cancer. And I just feel it.
You are so right.
And it's just the only thing that we can do is to raise the vibration. Look toward God, look toward the light, look toward that higher vibrational thing. And it just can't touch you. It just goes around. And I'm sure you see that every day. Do you not, Bill?
I sure do, and boy, oh boy, this is definitely going to require us to have a return show because it's very deep and there's a lot of info to relay, but I'll try and be as brief as possible on it. But for me, it was urgent to write the book, The Connection. I did have another book in mind that I was going to write. A couple other books I thought, okay, one book I'm going to call The Journey, and it'll be a chronicle of, all my experiences, just to try and maybe put it into perspective and to condense it. But that wasn't coming into fruition at that time. I was, God really gets my attention in different ways, and sometimes it's through dreams or visions. And he had, and the same thing happened with the previous book, 10 Steps to Victory. God woke me up from my sleep with this vision that I had to write this book, and I immediately did it. And pretty much the same thing happened with The Connection, to where God gave me this vision, showed me the cover, showed me the title, everything, and then I had to obey what he put into my mind, and I started working on it. Now, interestingly enough, and as you know, I'm super busy, and I have been pedal to the metal, nonstop traveling. It's like a rock band on a tour that doesn't end, and it's been like this for the last 3 years straight. However, I had this little window this past January, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was like all of a sudden everything stopped. So I had this window from mid-January to mid-February, and I fully understand that God created a way for me to be able to not have to travel anywhere and to write the book. And usually when I write, I spend like 2 to 4 hours a day. So when I commit to the project, I say, okay, I outline and I define. And as part of this, I say, I will spend 2 to 4 hours every day and or evening until this book is completed, until the project is completed. So then You know, that's usually my formula for writing. But yet on this, I found it so urgent that there were days that I spent 16 hours a day writing this book in front of the screen, typing until my eyes hurt so bad that that they were just killing me. I felt like I couldn't even, focus right anymore, and then I would stop. But there were days that I spent 16 hours a day in front of the screen typing this book up because it was that urgent. God put it on my spirit in that urgent manner to get this book out, this message out to people, that now is the time to come back to God and to make your personal connection and have your personal relationship with God because of the times that we're in right now and the things that are here and the things that are coming. I feel very strongly that if we remain in faith in what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage, if we are sincere about that and we remain in that, keep our connection with God strong, He will protect us and make a way for us through these times, through the times that are coming. So it was very urgent for me to get that book out. I'm overjoyed, and I praise God for working through me and helping me to write it, to get it out there, and it's been a real blessing, and I'm very, very thankful to God for it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's my best book out of the four because it was certainly God-inspired and very urgent from God through me to get the message out there to people, and I've had wonderful reviews on it. And I've said this on other shows, and now I'll say it on yours, that yes, it's great to sell books and all that. That's wonderful. But if you are out there and you don't have any money and you can't afford to buy a copy of The Connection, then send me an email. You can contact me at billbean.net. Send an email. Tell me that you can't afford it or whatever, however you would say it, and I will send you a reply and attach a free PDF internet version for you. It is very important for you to read. So, yes, it's great to sell books and all that, but that's not what this is about. This is about getting a message out there that God put onto me to give to the masses of people. So it's very, very urgent, and it goes beyond trying to make a buck. This is important, and it's an important message to get out there to the people.
That's absolutely wonderful, and we thank you for that, Bill. And I can tell you, I've read the books, and they are, at the same time, they take you through the darkness that can happen to just a regular, fantastically loving American family, and how quickly that it can separate a family and put each individual through horrors you cannot imagine. Everything that you can pretty much pull up in your mind happened to Bill and his family. And then, like he said, it started earlier. You can kind of trace it back. But it starts with one intent, and you don't even really know you're getting involved in it. Also, like you said, it was the property. There was, some an Indian mound there. And, I can speak from the Native American standpoint on this. There was an awful lot of land that our ancestors would say, you get them named all the time. Like you say, the devil's in the details. They would say, Devil's Den or Devil's Rock, or, nobody
Devil's
should be
Tower,
on. Yeah, you should not build on this land. Yet the people and settlers would come by and say, you know what, we're not going to believe in any of that. And they put the highway there, they put the development there, and then they leave it up to the people to live through it. And I just want to step in front of Bill. Not that Bill needs my defense here, I promise you. All of my 5'2" stature here, he does not need me to jump in front of him and defend him. But that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I've watched several videos now, some of them call themselves news, that went out and interviewed people in this development that said that they weren't having any issues. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you are into the supernatural or, trying to understand the paranormal, I can tell you this. That is complete and total bunk. Because you can take the Amityville house and whatever happened there, we know that something happened there. And then you have the people that move in afterwards and they say, well, nothing's happening here. It might have to do with the family that's there. If that family is not susceptible to it, or it's moved on, or it's in what we call dormant, or anything like that, just going to a town and knocking on some doors and going, did this happen here, and people going, no, that's all crazy. I can tell you right now, what happened to Bill happened. What happened to his family happened. Bless his mother's sweet heart, that woman fought, and ultimately, whether it was just a wearing down, it took her life. This is serious, and it happens every day. It happens every day. It could be happening down the block from you right now, and you wouldn't know it. Evil exists, and it's going to keep on at you until you break. And the only thing that's going to keep that from happening is your faith and the light that's within you, and knowing who you need to turn to fight it. Plain and simple.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Sysco, about that it was a Fox 45 cover story that aired several years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. I don't know. It was a while ago. But anyway, in that segment, they were interviewing the current resident and I guess her daughter or whatever, in that house. And it was interesting because I've never met these people, and I certainly wish them well, and I've prayed for them, and I would help them if they ever needed my help spiritually. And they said in the episode that, the news segment, the Fox 45 cover story, that Bill Bean, the only evil is Bill Bean in his books, and nothing has happened there, and all this stuff. And hey, God bless him. I wish that were true for him. But then I was contacted by a lady who was very close to that lady who did the interview, and she told me that was all a lie, and that the lady was saying these things because people were coming to the house all hours of the night, knocking on the door. And I'm sorry for that. I've never, ever given out the address. I have never publicly, I've given over 2,000 interviews, and I've never once given the address. I have never in print put the address, and I, certainly didn't want to cause those people any problems by telling the story. However, it's truth. And I have every right to talk about that because those events really happened. It's the truth. So I'm sorry for any inconvenience that those people, have been put through. But this person, who was supposed to be a very close friend of this lady, and she said some things, and it said some things about the house to where I know that this wasn't some crackpot, that this was a person who really knew what they were talking about. She said that they were having many supernatural experiences in the house, and she listed a bunch of things, and she said that both she and her daughter will no longer go in the house and visit her at the house because these things were happening. And furthermore, I found this interesting as well. She said that the lady who gave the interview was actually wheelchair bound from this mysterious illness that she'd seen all these doctors. Nobody knew what it was. But I find that interesting because the entire time that my mother lived in the house, she was ill. She had suddenly developed high blood pressure, which led to a series of strokes, which ultimately led to kidney failure. And I have many illnesses as well the whole time living in the house. So I find that very interesting that this person contacted me saying that. So whatever the case is, God bless those people. I wish them well. I don't even know if they're still living there. I don't know. I haven't been to the house. I have been back to the area several times as a spiritual warrior and a spiritual warfare minister helping other families in the area. I can tell you that. And I've also received many messages over the years from people who lived in the area, and some were friends of mine that I played baseball with, back when I was a child, telling me about the experiences that they had in their homes. So it just wasn't, isolated and centralized to that home that we lived in. But again, I think that it was amplified and magnified, and the severity was higher due to the prior exposure to whatever evil forces were conjured up and invoked upon the family. That's what made it so severe.
Right. I agree. And, we also have to understand in the paranormal, I still have many people who say to me, well, nobody died in the house. Well, we know that if you're paying attention to this and you're doing your due diligence and you're collecting data from true events, that doesn't have to happen. The whatever can be attached to the person, it could be attached to the family, it could be attached to the ground, it could be attached to an object. There's all different ways. So just for, a person to come out and say, there's nothing like that happening here, whether she was telling the truth or not. And we also realize that, come on, we're all adults here. We know that things are edited. They're, whatever the story, whichever way you want that story to sway, it's going to sway that way.
You better believe it.
Yep.
And the lady was free to voice her opinions in the way that she did. And again, God bless her and her family. I have no ill will towards them. I'm sorry if they have ill will towards me. But I wish them the best. And as a matter of fact, my parents had found out long after living there that a lady actually did die in the house. That she died in, supposedly, according to what they found out, that she died in my sister's room in that back bedroom. And another interesting thing that took place in that house, I've been in many of those houses, from childhood up until going back to visit people as a deliverance minister. So for many, many years, I've been in and out of those homes in that area. And the walls in those homes are very thin, so it would be very easy to put your fist or a knee or an elbow or something through those walls and make a hole. Very, very easy. However, in that house that we lived in, again, think about the dark brown paneling on the walls. It was very dark in the house always, but the walls were very solid. I mean, rock solid. And we found out that someone had doubled up on the walls. So they actually built walls over top of the existing walls in the house, and that's why the walls were so solid.
I wonder why, Bill.
Interesting?
It is interesting because my mind goes right to why. So somebody was having problems before, or there's something in those walls they didn't want them to find. I mean, heaven knows,
Here's another interesting thing, Sysco, is that, again, as a child, I had this compulsion to dig into my closet, which had this, I guess it was like sheet metal, and it had the riveting in there, and I would take my dad's flathead screwdriver, butter knives, anything that I could get my hands on. I had this compulsion to dig open, to pry that wall open in that closet. So, was something compelling me as a child to unleash something that perhaps may have been in those walls? I don't know.
You never know. I mean, that's just it. You go into, when we were talking earlier and you're saying you're going from hotel room to hotel room, I kind of cringed a little because I've always had the feeling, too, of any time I was in an apartment or a hotel, the energy, the sheer amount of energy that's left over by other people, and you never know what's going on in there. I mean, and the kind of energy...
That's what I do.
I'm hoping so.
When I go into every hotel room,
good for you.
I say I bless that hotel room, and I bind and rebuke anything evil or negative that is present everywhere I go. I don't care how tired I am. It doesn't matter. That's the first thing I do when I go through the door of the hotel. And
you are not the only friend of mine I have that does that. It's the same thing I do. I mean, I could tell you right now, my husband will say, you're going to want to do your holy water and your stuff and your sage right now, aren't you? I'm like, yep, out, leave me alone. He's like... He's just so complacent.
He knows the routine.
Yeah, well, he knows to stay out of my way, too. It's like, look, I'm going to douse you. The funniest story. Oh, gosh, you're going to laugh. You need to laugh. This is so funny. This is my Mario. He comes in from hard work. He's hard working. He's 6 days a week most of the time. Bless his heart. And he comes home and he's, and he's we forget who the real heroes are, don't we, Bill? the ones that go to work
I
and
believe
take
it.
care of their kids, and God bless them. So he comes home and he takes his shower and he goes in his, his room and everything, and he comes out, and so nonchalantly I'm sitting on the couch reading a book, and he says, I was going into my closet. He has this big sliding glass mirrored closet door, and he said, I was going into the closet and there seems to be crosses, in some kind of, is that maybe oil on the closet door, And I said, yeah. And he says, is there anything I need to worry about? Not anymore. And he said, okay. And he toddled on and went about his business. He doesn't, don't need to know. We're good. We're taken care of. But isn't that funny? And you know what? That should just be, we should get down to that normalcy of it, because what happened to that, Bill? I mean, in our lifetimes, we have gone from the Waltons to the Walking Dead. Do you remember?
Well,
in our lifetime, the things that you couldn't put on television, and now you can watch somebody blow apart any time of the day on at least 10 channels, anytime, any day.
Yep.
And we've grown desensitized. Oh, sure, I agree. And we've grown desensitized to it, and it's just...
And the reason for it, Sysco, is that, and this has been going on for a long time, and what I'm about to say, again, will require us to have another show because it'll be in depth, but I'll, again, be as brief as I can. There's been a concerted effort for many, many years to launch this plan, and I really believe that God has given the devil, Hasatan, this short period of time to literally have his way. Because this goes back to the book of Job, to where Satan reports into God and he says, I can turn your good and faithful servant Job against you. I can get him to curse you.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, we're all in this Job type of experience right now, where God is allowing the devil to have this short window of time to have his way in the world. So when Yahweh created the world, he created the world in his image, after his likeness, after his kind. And so the devil's trying to recreate the world now in his image, after his likeness, after his kind. And that's exactly what's happening here. There's an end game to this. So there's been a concerted effort, and a lot of people would disagree with me on this, because when I say things, I don't just shoot from the hip and say something impulsively. I do a lot of study. First of all, I do a lot of prayer, and then a lot of study into things. So when I say something, I'm confident in what I say, because A, God will give me confirmation on it that it is true, and B, I have done the studies that can back up what I say. And so I read a lot of books on mind control and social engineering and all these types of things. And this really started in the mid-50s. There was a plan that was launched to destabilize the American family, because in the beginning of the 50s up until the mid-50s, it was probably the greatest time for the American family. And so this plan was launched to destabilize the family, and they did it through music. Now, look, I'm a musician. I used to play in bands many years ago, and I've done some things over the years with the Orphones down in Louisville and things of that nature. But the fact of the matter is, and this requires a lot of prayer and study, is that there was a plan launched through music, which started in the mid-50s with Bill Haley and the Comets, and then going through to Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Elvis, and then the Beatles, and then after that, forget it. This calculated and clever plan was launched through the military-industrial complex in the black programs. It was designed to destabilize the American family and to destabilize the minds and capture the minds of the youth. So it started by creating rebellion in the youth, and then advanced to sexual promiscuity. Then phase 3 was the drugs. So once they started pumping in the drugs, into the concerts, and the populace, well, then forget about it. It was a runaway train after that. And so this is why we are where we are now as a society, because of that plan that was launched all the way back then. So it's taken all this time to get to where we are right now. And we're in a dangerous place right now because of the technology. And for me, a lot of people may disagree on this, but I feel that the more technologically advanced we become, the worse off we are as a people, because it's designed to separate people.
True.
So the devil is a divider, and he's always in the details of this stuff. So
True.
we have things now like the CERN device. HARP has been around since 1996, or even maybe before that, but that is something that has been used quite a bit to create, let's just say, many events over the years. And so the CERN device now, and a lot of people don't even know what this is, and I suggest that you look it up, capital CERN, and it's interesting that their logo is 3 interlocking sixes, and their mascot outside of their headquarters is the goddess Shiva, which is the goddess of destruction, and that thing is standing in the middle of a stargate, and it's right there at their headquarters. So it's an interesting choice for what they would have, as something representing what they do. And I really believe that we have progressed so much technologically now, and it is due to a relationship. And these people know who they are. More importantly, God knows who they are. Some of these people in the shadows, the black ops, they are communicating with the devil's demons, and I believe that they're taking orders from the devil through those demons to carry out these types of things. And this is where AI comes in, artificial intelligence. And so we are on a really slippery slope now, where all these things are being introduced, and this is part of a great social engineering project and a mass mind control project, and it's all designed to lead people away from God and to distort people's connection with God. Therefore, if you can lead the masses away from God, then you can reprogram them to have different belief systems and to believe in the beast system. And the end game in this, Sysco, I really firmly believe, and it is in the not-too-distant future, in my opinion, is that they will soon make an announcement saying that they've come up with the greatest technological discovery in the history of mankind. And for those who want to be a part of this great new world, they're going to have to receive this chip, which I believe is the mark of the beast. And the masses are going to be told that if they receive this chip, they are going to merge with machine, and whether that's the D-Wave quantum computer system or whatever, it's all the beast systems, so no matter what it is. And once they do that, they will become immortal, and they'll never die, and they'll never be sick again, and people are going to line up in the masses to take it, and in my opinion, it's the mark of the beast, and that's the end game right there. So God is allowing all of this to happen for this short time because it is all about those who stand tall and stand strong in faith, strength, and courage. And if we have that close connection with God, He will give us the spiritual discernment to know what is true and what is not, what is right, what is wrong, and the things to do and the things not to do.
Right. And, people, you're not the only one saying this, Bill. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, I've told anybody that listens to that there are, without a doubt, frequencies coming out of certain shows, like even the news. I can feel it. I can be in another room and I can tell when my husband's got the news on. And I'm like, what are you watching that for? I can feel the frequency changing in this house, and he'll cut it off. I can tell you that, again, if you just take it as frequency or vibration, that you can feel it. I have people that ask me, well, how do I, heighten my vibration? I'm like, turn on, some good uplifting music and dance barefoot in your kitchen. Laugh, tell jokes, do whatever, but lift it.
What you're saying is 100% true, and you could put this to the test. So those who are out there listening, listen to what Sysco just said. You can put this to the test, because I feel that TV sets, computers, any type of device that is powered, with electricity can become a portal. So
yes.
It's very important to close those portals and bind and rebuke anything that would try and come through by the mighty power of Yahweh in Jesus' name. And so it's very important. And take note of this as well. And I've seen this so many times, and you will see it. If you look and go back over the last probably 10, maybe 15 years, take a look at all these, and not just the rock bands, but, these rappers and everything else, these pop stars. Take a look at their stages, because they all have one thing in common. And the one thing that they have in common is the big scrying screen in the background. It's this big oval-shaped type of screen that is in the background on these, I don't care what band it is or what music or what genre, it doesn't matter. They're all on there. That's their common link, and that is a portal. It's a scrying device, and that allows those demons to come through at the concerts and affect the people who are in attendance.
There's also something I had a theory too about. I was trying to explain to somebody. I said, can you imagine when you get a group of people together? Now, I could be completely wrong on this. You tell me what your thoughts are. When you get a group of people together and say put them in a theater and everybody's watching an uplifting, wonderful movie and the energy is great, the energy that comes off of that is amazing. It could be the same as going to a church or going to a concert that's uplifting. It's a gathering together of a group of their energies, and it's all high vibration. Now you take the same group and you put them in a movie theater and you watch a movie like Saw or, some other, just saying it makes me sick, but
I recommend that people don't watch those things. And these are all, there's a reason for these movies to be out like this, to really affect people in their minds and their bodies and their spirits, because everything is interlocked.
And a movie like Purge, for Pete's sakes. Can you imagine a movie like Purge coming out, 20, 30 years ago, what people would say? I mean, it was just, but people are watching it.
Purge. I don't even know what that is.
Well, I'm glad. You don't want to know. But it's just, imagine the energy, just the lower vibration, going down. And I'm going to tell you something, whether it's a human, a human ghost that's still there and it's stuck in a lower vibrational thing, it feeds on lower vibrational things. And if humans can do that, you imagine entities that feed on that as well. Fear, depression, everything. Now you bring in the drugs. I'm going to tell you right now, this epidemic, drugs have always been bad. You can go back for however long you want to be, and drugs have always been bad. But I'm going to tell you something. The opium fields are wide open, and they're pumping it. And, our youth, it's so bad here in the East. I know it is everywhere, but
yeah, it is.
Ask yourself,
and it is bad everywhere.
Ask yourself why. They had them about under control, and then all of a sudden now we've got soldiers out there. What is going on? Whose side is what happening here? And I have been a bartender, and I can tell you that at a bartender in a hotel bar, a very nice hotel, and I've sat and I've watched, Bill, a gray mist follow behind everybody sitting at the bar, and as soon as it got one that it could jump into, bam, and that person's personality would change, their drinking habits change, and I've told this story before. So, what we're talking about is real. Bill goes constantly. I can tell you that. He is like he said, he's almost like he's on this rock concert tour that never ends.
Never-ending tour.
Because he goes into the homes of people that cry out for help, and he pulls these people out of the holes that they're in, and they don't have another idea of what to do next. They are so desolate and they're so overtaken by the evil that's enveloped them, that he has to go in and pull them out through the powers of God. And it's happening 24/7 in every city and country across the world. So there it is.
Absolutely true.
There it is. And the only way out.
Your thoughts also, Sysco, on the bar thing, because I worked in that business for 22 years. And
yes, you did.
Described it's things that I've seen as well, and I'm in total agreement with you.
And what do you do in that case, Bill? People ask you, well, why didn't you tell the person? Well, because at the time, the person, you know what I mean? You just try to help as much as you can, because in my case, I was used to seeing that particular entity, and it was a human entity that just decided, I call them jumpers. They didn't want to cross over. They didn't want to go into the light. They liked the taste of alcohol. They liked to fight. They liked to play pool, and they jumped in and they used that person's body. So I tell people, not every time if you go out drinking, and who hasn't? We all had a youth,
We all have.
Yeah. And, and if you ever had that time where you kind of blacked out, where you weren't real sure what you were doing, not all blackouts are caused by alcohol, because you've made yourself, susceptible. You've weakened yourself. You've weakened your spiritual, what I call windshield, what's around you. And once you got a crack in it, boy, they'll find that crack and they'll push on it. They got all the time in the world, There is
no question about that. I'm in total agreement.
Yep.
And, I've seen it so many times in my life. I have been there under the influence of this. Again, when we lower our frequency and vibration through the use of alcohol and or drugs, boy, oh boy, we are opening ourselves up wide for the devil and his minions to come in and have their way. We're literally putty in the hands of these demonic forces. And when I was, at one time, I was a very heavy drinker, and I would become very violent through that, and it was as if I had no more control, that something else was coming in and taking over. And that's exactly what happens. When we lower our frequency and vibration in that way, we're wide open for the enemy. So, I've said it a million times that it is really imperative that we keep our frequency and vibration high. And for me, the way that I do that is through my faith in God. I make God first. I keep God first. And then he's blessed me in turn with a wonderful life. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Is my life perfect? No. But I try to do the best that I can do, and I try to be the best that I can be each and every day of my life. And in return, God has blessed me with a wonderful life that I wouldn't trade places with anybody. And I am very happy, and I'm very thankful to God for everything that he's done for me, for everything that he's doing, and for everything that he's going to do for me.
And we ask ourselves too, Bill, what can I do? As one person, what can I do? And I think that's the hold that, they count on. Because we can make a difference as one person. You can make someone smile. You can, instead of trying to judge that person we all get road rage or little things like that. But everything, like we said from the beginning, we're like pebbles in a pond, and our ripples cause reaction. And we might not realize how far out those go. So if you do something good, let it go with faith and just say, that might touch somebody who needed that laugh or needed that, that a girl or that a boy,
Exactly right.
And lift them up, take care of nature. Go back to almost, I always revel in, certain tribal things all around the world. When you went back to that village, whether it be Native American or Japanese, you name it, it usually goes down to something simple. Be kind to one another. Take care of nature. Be kind to animals. Be kind to,
I'm in total agreement.
Because you give that out. Everything is there and everything has a purpose. People laugh at me because I've skipped a meal to feed animals outside or feral cats or whatever. And, if that's something...
You're a wonderful and blessed person, and God, that's Christ-like to do something like that.
Well, that's the thing. you appreciate what you have. We are so blessed if you just look around and you get out of the material stuff. We've kind of grown up in the past, couple of decades of the me, give me mine. We are what we drive. We are where we live. We are what we wear. And you know what? We need to get back to that core. I am who my children become. That's my legacy. If I can put out a decent individual back into the world, I've done my part, and we got to get back to that value, to value each other. And we come apart as a family a lot. Like, what happened to the dinner? Well, now everybody's sitting at the dinner and everybody's looking at their phone, and
exactly right. And I'll tell you, in these airports, it's amazing. You walk in the airports and everybody's heads are buried in the phones. You go down a city street, the same thing. Everybody's looking down at their phones. And it's just absolutely amazing how captivated. And people's minds have been taken captive. This is what I'm trying to say is that, through these technological advances, no good has really come. When you really break it down and you say, okay, well, yeah, it's easier to communicate with people, and that's, this instant messaging and all this kind of stuff with the text and all that. Oh, wonderful, great. But what it's done, it's taken the human aspect away to where there's real human interaction through talking back and forth, communicating. I mean, there are people in homes that are, and I've heard these stories and I've seen to where people in the same
I was going to say it.
Are, getting together and they're texting each other. They're sitting in the
same room
and they're texting each other. Why can't you talk?
I know.
Texting each other?
I was going to say the same thing.
Crazy.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Insane.
I've seen it happen. I'm like, please tell me you're not texting each other. Put the phones down and talk,
It's mind-boggling.
It is. It's so funny.
So what I try to do, and I've listed this in the connection, there are 10 steps that I follow that I call 10 steps to victory. And for me, now look, I can't twist anybody's arm to do anything, nor do I want to, but I can share with you and the listeners how I live my life and how God has blessed me. And what I do, the first step is obviously to make God first. Secondly, I follow the path and the teachings of Yeshua, Jesus the Christ. Third is about keeping my faith strong, building your faith, keeping it strong. 4, we must forgive people. So look, many times in my life, I have trespassed against people, and I'm very sorry for it, but many times people have trespassed against me as well, and I forgive them. So forgiveness is every bit as much for us as it is for the person that we're forgiving, because we hold on to hatred and negativity, and it's a spiritual poisoning. So true. Jesus had a very strong message in forgiveness, and I'm thankful that, I certainly try my best to follow along in that and just forgive people of their trespasses. Then step 5 is finding your purpose in life. It's the greatest thing in the world to know what your purpose is, and it was so fulfilling for me, and it was certainly the biggest turning point of my life was the confirmation from God that my purpose actually is this, to help people to become free from evil and to move forward in their life. And it's the greatest thing for me, knowing that. And then 6 is using the power of positive thinking, and this goes right back to high frequency, high vibration. So if we are operating in that high frequency, high vibration, aka warrior mode, faith, strength, and courage, then we are moving forward, and life is good for the most part. 7 is about setting goals. It's very important to set goals for ourselves and then stick to that. And I will forever thank my cousin Philip for the words that he said to me many, many years ago as a teenager. He said to outline and define, and that's something that's stuck with me and has stuck with me throughout my life. So it's very important to set goals and outline and define them. Number 8 is giving. It is so important to have and to give with a glad heart and to give to others. I would much rather give to somebody than to receive. I have a feeling of joy when I'm giving, and I can't describe it, but
I understand.
have a problem with receiving because
I
I
do
want to
too.
give all the time,
Yeah.
know? And step 9 is to be grateful for everything. I am so thankful. Yes, I've been down the long and hard roads of life, and there's been a great deal of suffering and torment, and all that was for a reason. I couldn't be where I am right now had I not been there. So it was all a necessary part of the journey, and I am grateful to God for everything. I'm very thankful for Him delivering me from all that garbage, for transforming my life, for transforming me into a victor. I was once a victim, and now I am a victor, and that is by the power of God. So I can never thank Him and praise Him enough for that. And then step 10 is to walk in that warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage. And I know it's easier said than done, believe me. But once we get to that place to where we're really locked in on that and we really start to live that every day, well, then it becomes natural and normal. And I can't live any other way, nor do I want to live any other way. And I'm very thankful to God for that.
I think that's wonderful. And I've got so much to say about what you just said, but the important points on that, if you would allow me to reiterate, when you were talking about forgiveness, there's another important thing we need to do, and that's forgive ourselves. We cannot learn, we cannot learn unless we go through. Now, there's so many people, and I can from my own life tell you this, and I've told my listeners this before. There's people in my life, my dad, you name it. And, when you get to a point, you just got to go, okay, was that person in my life so I could learn something? You cannot blame a rock for being a rock. You can hold on to a rock and hope it's a tree all day long, but you cannot change people. You can only change how you react to it. And once you realize that, that person's going to be a rock their whole life, let it go and forgive them for being that rock and stop holding on to it, because it's like we're wearing these long trench coats with lots of pockets. And every time you have a lower vibrational feeling like anger, greed, hatred, regret, whatever, it's like putting another rock in your pocket. And you can't lift yourself up with all that weight. Let it go. Let it go.
I totally agree.
Glean from it.
Agree.
Yeah.
We see the messages that are set out through these entertainers and these TV stars and movie stars and all that, and it is the message of greed and envy, and this is the lifestyle you're supposed to live, and no matter what, you do whatever it takes to attain that lifestyle, and et cetera, et cetera. We could go on and on, but we're running out of time. I can't wait to come back so we can dig into some more of these things. But,
absolutely, but only in America.
More to talk about.
Only in America do you have a disease called anorexia. Where did our young women get this idea that they had to be so skinny, off of magazines, and it's just so sad.
How sad is that?
It's just, you don't hear about that in Africa and things. It's just like, it's mind-boggling. But listen, people, you are a light. Within you, you carry that divine light. You are a child of God. You are a child of your source. And don't let anybody put that light out. Bring it from within and surround yourself with it, and you'll see your life change. And I cannot say that enough. And that is myself. You listen to me talk, my listeners, and you think, oh my gosh, she's had everything handed to her and she's been through it. I assure you, no. I have been through things. I have seen the darkness. That's why I cherish the light. And
absolutely.
I promise you that. I promise you that. And like I said, Bill goes every day. He's probably going somewhere today to pull people out of the darkness. And I offer my hand, and I know Bill does. And where can we find you, Bill? When people, just BillBean.com, correct?
BillBean.net.
.net.
And so if you punch my name into Google, you'll get the phone book. It'll be very easy to find me. But I want to thank you, Sysco, so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. And you and I could have talked for probably 5 hours.
Yep.
We could have done a 5-hour show. So we'll have to come back. I look
Please
forward to
do.
coming back the next time. And I want to thank everybody out there for listening in as well. And if you're out there and you're having spiritual problems, if you're in a place that you feel like you've hit a wall, or you're suffering through depression, or you feel like you have curses on you, or possibly even demonic influence, whether that is through demonic oppression, or it may be leading into possession, or you may know a friend or a loved one that is suffering from that, feel free to contact me. I'm very, very busy, but I'm never too busy to help somebody. And you can visit billbean.net. You can email me directly from the site, and my wonderful assistant, Melinda, will get back to you very shortly. And please don't hesitate, because when a person is under this kind of garbage, they need to know that someone is out there, and it is not my power. Let me be very clear on that. I'm not some Superman or superpower. This is the power of God that is working through me. And I praise God for this calling and for these gifts. And there's nothing else that I'd rather be doing with my life or with my time than helping others to be able to become free and move forward and have quality of life after that. So please don't hesitate to contact me. If you'd like to get a copy of The Connection or Dark Force, the other books, Delivered or 10 Steps to Victory, please don't hesitate. And if you can't afford it, send me an email, and I will attach free PDF copies for you. So, again, thank you so much, Sysco. Love and God bless you and your family. And love and God bless everybody out there that's been listening in.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add, too, on Bill's site, there is a spiritual warfare prayer that I have handed out to so many people. And it has truly helped them. And it puts the power back in your hand, and you put, connection back into your light. And Bill, I cannot thank you enough. Bless you, my brother. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're out there for others. And I'm so blessed to have you here with me tonight. Thank you, Bill.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and I look forward to the next time, because boy, oh boy, do we ever have a lot more to talk about.
We absolutely do, love. We absolutely do. You have a good night.
You too, Sysco. God bless you.
My thanks to the fantastic Bill Bean for taking time out of his busy day to give us that uplifting message. And I want to reiterate again, if you are having problems yourself, a loved one, in your home, please reach out to him. He can help, or he can lead you to those who can in your city, or your state, or wherever you are, your country. Please do not hesitate. His billbean.net, and like I said, that first reach out is the most important, because we can feel very overwhelmed when we are surrounded by this, and I promise you, you won't regret it if you do reach out for help. And like I said, so many different things can get us caught up in this. He's got lots of different, his websites, his videos, his prayers, and other uplifting information. So reach out to Bill. He's the real deal. And his haunting is available. It is called House of the Dead. When you see what his family went through, it's almost to the point of not being able to believe that it's true, but I assure you it is. And, lots of different video and interviews are available on his site, as well as YouTube and anything else. So there's that. I want to leave you with a positive thought, and that is this. When you are in a darkened room, and we've all been there, like say at night when you're asleep and, you get a notification on your cell phone, there's a tiny, tiny little pinpoint light on that cell phone, and as dark as your room is, when that little tiny light goes off, all the darkness goes away. You have that light inside of you, and I promise you, one pinpoint of light will wash away a darkened room, and it can do that in your life as well. So don't ever lose that hope, okay? Help is there, and I thank you for listening tonight. So as always, keep your feet under the covers. Keep your closet door shut. Because there are things that go bump in the night.